Hare Krishna. The mind makes us unthinkingly do the unthinkable. The unthinkable refers to that which is so bad, so shocking, so reprehensible that it doesn't even bear thinking about, leave alone deciding to do, and leave far alone actually doing it. And yet, sometimes we end up doing things which are so far away from our values that in retrospection we shudder. What made me do that? How could I have done such a thing? Now, depending on the nature of our values, what we may do wrong is very vary. Sometimes we may speak such things that we ourselves are shocked. We are shocked with ourselves. How could I have spoken such things? So we end up doing the unthinkable. Now, how do we do the unthinkable? It is the mind makes us unthinkingly do the unthinkable. So here unthinkingly refers to not, so unthinkable refers to that which is so bad as to be not even worthy of being thought about, leave alone being done. And unthinkingly doing means thoughtlessly doing. That means when the mind carries us away, and once we get onto the spell of the mind just sweeps us away, and in its gust of thoughts, we end up doing things which are terrible. So the mind sabotages our thinking process and makes us do terrible things. The mind, so it's unthinkingly do the unthinkable. So just as when you sudden forceful wind comes along, that wind just sweeps away a person. So like that, the mind can sweep us away. And Krishna, and in the Bhagavad-gita, Arjuna talks about this fearsome power of the mind when he says, Chanchalam himana Krishna pramathi balavatridham tasyaham nigraham manye vayoriva sudushkaram. He says the mind is so forceful, it can so easily carry away a person, that I think that the mind is like controlling the mind is as difficult as controlling the wind. It says controlling the wind is almost impossible for us. Similarly, controlling the mind is impossible for us. And yet, what do? If a storm is going to come, then we know that we can't stop the storm, but then we go into a shelter. Sometimes when storm alerts are given by the government says don't go then the government gives the alert, don't go out into the public, go out into the atmosphere, you may be swept away. So take shelter. Either we may go into a house, strongly built house, or sometimes we may even go underground, so that if sometimes the house may get swept away, but if we are underground in the shelter, that will not be swept away. So like that, when the mind's wind starts sweeping, the mind comes up with its schemes, certain ideas. Hey, come on, do this and you will enjoy. And the mind starts sweeping us away. So at that time, we cannot stop the mind's raging flow of thoughts, which are like a stormy wind. If we get caught in it, just as we are helpless, and we may be wanting to go in one direction, but if the wind comes along, the wind may just take us in a completely opposite direction. So like that, we may have certain values and we want to go in certain directions, but the mind may sweep us off in the opposite direction. But what do we do at that time? Actually, we need to check ourselves. And we can't check ourselves by our own efforts. So just as when a stormy wind comes, we take shelter. So when we start, just as there can be weather forecast which tells, there is weather forecast which tells, okay, the storm is going to come now. So like that, if we are intellectually alert, if we are scripturally well studied, if we are philosophically sharp, then when the storm of temptation, the storm of desire is in the horizon, it is just coming along, at that time itself we recognize now a storm is going to come. and I have not been able to cope with the storm, so I have to retreat to a shelter. So we get out of the path of the storm. So when there are tempting situations which are going to awaken stormy desires within us, we choose to retreat from that situation. So into a safe shelter. And when we keep us at the safest shelter is not so. If we go into some house, that's like going to an area which is normally out of the temptation zone. But sometimes the storm may be so great that it may sweep through a house and break the house also. Then we have to go into underground shelter. So that is like deep inside, which is beyond the reach of the storm, and that is the remembrance of Krishna. When we remember Krishna, then that remembrance gives us a shelter which cannot be destroyed, but which is indestructible. And thus the storm may come and go. That means that in our mind those desires come and they rage. But by holding on to Krishna, by seeking shelter in Krishna, by keeping our consciousness in Krishna, we are not forced to act according to those desires. Rather, we are able to check ourselves. So the mind rages on, but we don't act according to the mind's goading. We don't act according to the mind's schemes. And just as no storm lasts forever, the storm subsides over a period of time. Similarly, the mind's say gust of lust that might be there, the stormy wind of lusty desire might be there, or rage might be there, or whatever emotion, irrational emotion that the mind may be going through, it calms down, and then we can resume our normal life. So in this way, by seeking the shelter of Krishna when the mind's stormy winds comes, and also by making it a habit to take shelter of Krishna, by training ourselves to take shelter of Krishna, just as if a person is not having the training, then the person will just panic at the time when the storm comes and not react properly. The person has to have the knowledge and the habit of knowing what to do. The training to know what to do when a storm comes, that I should go underground and take shelter. Similarly, we should also have the knowledge and the training. By regularly taking shelter of Krishna, we can take shelter of Krishna even when the storm is there, and thus weather the storms of the mind. Thank you.